for that.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I will start with sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so yes, my name is Pam, and I am an after stroke coordinator with After Stroke and March of Dimes Canada. So the objectives for today's session are really, we want to be able to explain the process used by an after stroke coordinator to assist an individual with their return to work goals. We are going to work on understanding the ways in which March of Dimes Canada programming can support an individual with their return to work goals. And we're also going to be able to distinguish the difference between the after stroke program and the employment services program within March of Dimes in supporting post-stroke clients with return to work goals. So why we are here. Our groundwork began in 2020. We created a new vision and mission statement for our after stroke program. Fundamentally, we dare to believe in a brighter future for every stroke survivor. We are here to create connections. When people impacted by stroke feel a sense of abandonment and isolation, a connection to person-to-person support, innovative and responsive tools, resources, programs, and other stroke survivors can change everything for them. That understanding and support can really change how they see the journey ahead. The connection to others and to work, education, social and recreational opportunities brings much needed humanity and optimism at a time of fear and uncertainty. Answers to the questions such as what's next can show them a way forward. We truly see a world where everyone impacted by stroke can recover and live life with renewed purpose and optimism and inspire others to do the same. The After Stroke program provides stroke survivors and their families with personalized stroke recovery and support services, addressing their wide-ranging needs and concerns, from the time spent in hospital throughout the transition home and back in into the communities. We deliver person-to-person support, educational opportunities, and innovative community-based programs that provide a connection to humanity, hope, and life after stroke. Through a tiered delivery model, we provide stroke survivors and their family members with support, information, tools, and programming that enables their return to their lives and communities. Our process of supporting client recovery is evidence-informed. It begins when we receive a referral and is followed quickly by a call from one of our after stroke coordinators. An interview and assessment are performed in order to assist the client in identifying their specific needs. We support the client in identifying 2 or 3 SMART goals that support their needs. And we help them to develop actions to achieve these goals. And these goals are wide-ranging and include referrals to our March of Dimes Canada programming, volunteer opportunities, as well as any other community-based activities. Goal achievement can take weeks or months, but we continue to meet the client where they are and provide support along the journey. So in our assessment, our after stroke coordinators use the Return to Normal Living Index, the RNLI, which is an evidence-based tool that assesses the degree to which individuals who have experienced trauma or incapacitating illness achieve reintegration into normal social activities. And as after stroke coordinators, this is our goal setting and action plan sheet that we use with clients to create those SMART goals and to build that plan. So in regards to assessing work net readiness, as after stroke coordinators, we are supporting the development of realistic SMART goals. We are identifying actions to support development of work readiness. We are completing referrals to programs offered through our March of Dimes Canada After Stroke program, community referrals to community programming, and we're also completing referrals to our employment services. When a client indicates that return to work is one of their goals, we closely work with them to assess their readiness. We use tools such as the Employment Readiness Checklist from American Heart and Stroke, as well as we now use the Return to Vocation Toolkit developed by our stroke networks. Information shared by our hospitals and outpatient teams regarding a client's progress and goals that were set while in rehabilitation are extremely helpful in assisting clients to set those realistic SMART goals with us once they are back home and in the community. We work with clients to suggest they attempt activities or try out environments that are a part of their role. For example, if a client has to commute 1 hour to work, each way, we work with the client to build a SMART goal around how to go about completing that commute. Also, if a client works in a busy or loud environment, or maybe has to stare at a computer screen all day, we build a SMART goal around those tasks with the client. We help the client to break down the different aspects of their role and to build a plan or a SMART goal to help them get ready to complete those tasks or to test their readiness for those tasks. So we're going to jump into our first case study. So we have a 60-year-old that has worked in customer service and retail all of her working life. She's a 1.5 years post-stroke, and she recently received medical approval from her cardiologist and her neurologist saying that she's medically approved to return to work. And, the stroke survivor also needed to return for financial reasons. Her current status at the time was she used a walker for mobility. She was experiencing post-stroke fatigue. She had poor balance, and a lack of strength. She also had changes in her short-term memory, and her emotion, she became really emotional when speaking about her stroke and her stroke outcomes. So she also had a fear of being alone, falling, and leaving the house independently. She lived with her sister, who also worked full-time, and her employer was not involved. She was released from her position 6 months after her stroke happened. So with this, the client was really adamant that they had to return to work now because they had received that medical approval, and that they had to return as quickly as possible because they had received that medical approval and for financial reasons. So as an after stroke coordinator, we completed a referral to the employment services program. That stroke survivor met with a VRS, which is a vocational rehabilitation specialist, which Mim will explain later on. And that VRS reviewed with the client the current job market for customer service related retail roles, employers' expectations and the associated job duties, and created pre-employment goals that the client needed to reach prior to starting the employment services program. So the client then came back with those pre-employment service goals, and we built the action plan together. to support, the achievement of those pre-employment goals to get her ready to start the employment services program. So one being transportation. So mobility, using mobility transit, learning the public transit system. She started with, transit training, using the public transit system with her neighbor, and is working on taking the system independently. She's working on building strength and endurance and balance, which is part of those job requirements seen through her meeting with the vocational rehabilitation specialist. She started an at-home virtual exercise program to increase those outcomes or help with those outcomes. She attended one-on-one peer meetings and stroke support groups to really discuss that her stroke and those emotional outcomes, that fear. And through all this, she completed our high-tech program so that she could become 100% comfortable with Zoom to access these peer groups and the virtual exercise program at home. So the client is really working towards her return to work goals. She has a very clear understanding of her pre-employment requirements and has a plan in place to help achieve them. And this is just showing our page 2, which would be the future goals that we had for her. So for her, it was, her future goal was to achieve gainful employment and to attend an in-person exercise program to really start to look at, can she attend a set routine? Can she leave the house independently? Can she attend a set schedule? And then her long-term goal was really to support others and to give back to the stroke community that had really supported her. So as I said in our first case study, the client went through our high-tech program to, be a part of those SMART goals, to obtain knowledge on how to use Zoom to access the virtual exercise program and our peer support programming. And the eligibility criteria for this program is just anyone with a disability looking to learn something about technology, and whether that be a Zoom meeting and that type of thing, social platforms. Okay, so now we're going to go into case study number 2. So this is about a 47-year-old female bookkeeper who is 2 years post-stroke. She experienced no physical outcomes from the stroke, but struggled with concentration, so really focusing on a task, and fatigue. The employer was still involved and was eager to work with the client to help her have a successful return. So the afterstroke coordinator and the client created an action plan to support the client's return to work. And she was also eager to return to her regular life. And we used SMART goals to help create support and a plan. In building the action plan, the afterstroke coordinator completed a referral to 2 local employment services agencies. The employment service agencies worked with the client and the client's employer to create a unique and successful back-to-work plan. The employment agencies discussed readiness to perform her past employment duties and position. And the agencies also guided the employer on a back-to-work plan that would work for all of those involved. The plan started with the client working from home, and happy to report she's now up to 3 days per week of full-time work. So the afterstroke coordinator used the goal setting and action plan sheet with the client to create these SMART goals to help support, her eagerness to return to work and also her regular life, as she called it, in regards to transportation. Initially, working with the afterstroke coordinator, she wanted to get her driver's license reinstated. So the afterstroke coordinator provided information on the process and also got her connected to our upcoming Ask the Expert on driving. But after that amount of time and through that information, she decided that the public transit system was actually for her. And then the client also, originally moved closer to family when she had her stroke, but was from the Hamilton area. So she had that goal of wanting to return back home. So the after stroke coordinator referred the client to an agency in her local area that provided her with life skills training specific to her needs. And the client also attended a virtual exercise program and peer one-to-one meetings. The after stroke coordinator and the client continued with regular check-ins to assess the current situation and to offer emotional support and information. And the client has successfully moved back to Hamilton, is starting 3 days per week. And the employer and staff have been really accommodating and are working with her because they have that skill and knowledge from working with the employment agency. And the client has learned the bus schedules in Hamilton and is very content with where she's at. So this is just an example of the second page where we have those longer term goals in place. So as shown in case study number 2, that client wanted to know more about returning to driving. And we host every month workshops on various stroke topics, and what that client attended and asked the expert on the return to driving process. So every month we host topics that are asked for by stroke survivors on different parts of the stroke journey. So case study number 1 talked about peer support, fear about factors related to leaving the house and being able to return to work. So they attended peer support programming and shared this information while in the groups and one-on-one, which allowed them to practice speaking about their challenges and learn strategies from other individuals regarding that short-term memory loss. And we're just given the opportunity to speak to other people with those similar challenges. And in case study number 2, they worried about returning to work and managing their stroke symptoms of their ability to concentrate and pay attention and focus. So she shared this with the virtual peer support groups and received suggestions from others who are also experiencing the same challenges, and tips and tricks and suggestions on how to support those outcomes. And in both cases, the clients attended our virtual exercise program. So exercise and mobility are important in maintaining good health after a stroke and will help you to feel more confident and independent. Our virtual exercise is a group-based program for adults with disabilities to increase independent mobility. So it's really focusing on the whole body. We incorporate mobility, strength, aerobics, and mindfulness into each class. So whether you can complete the classes from a seated position or standing position. And it really helps you to stay more active and safe in everyday life. We also wanted to mention our GRASP program, as GRASP is another program that we felt would benefit a stroke survivor in their return to work goals. GRASP is an evidence-informed program designed to improve the function of your arm and hands. GRASP is a program for people recovering from stroke to improve arm and hand function, and the program requires a commitment of 10 weeks with additional homework and practice. There is some eligibility criteria, and it's mostly suitable for individuals who have some grasp and release ability. Also, March of Dimes Canada is partnering with Heart and Stroke Foundation to offer our Living with Stroke program for stroke survivors and caregivers. The Living with Stroke program is an 8-week facilitator-led program that will help stroke survivors to talk about and manage the challenges of life after experiencing a stroke. It provides them with an opportunity to meet other people going through a similar journey and to gain knowledge, skills, confidence, and friendships to support their journey in recovery and well-being. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Pam. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Miriam Braithwaite, Regional Employment Services Manager with March of Dimes. Pam's going to help me with the slides. She's got the control, so we can move on to the next one. So I'm here to talk about our employment services program and what will happen when folks come in after a referral from our March of Dimes After Stroke coordinators. People are working with them and thinking that returning to work is something that they want to do. So our employment services department helps people with disabilities, and that's a wide spectrum of disabilities. It's not just physical disabilities, but it could be someone struggling with mental health. It could be a person with stroke. It could be someone that has an intellectual or developmental delay or a physical disability or injury. And so we help them, and I will go a little bit deeper into the presentation, but we help them prepare for work, find work, and retain work. And so next slide, please. So as I said, when people come through our placement services with March of Dimes, we first do an intake meeting, and that's really just us getting to know the person. It could be a series of maybe 2 or 3 meetings where we're starting to build rapport, gathering information about skills and abilities, previous work experience, and or volunteer, and just coming to know where's the person at in terms of maybe where they have been and where do they want to be. What's important is we want to make sure that we get to know the supports as well as the strengths that people have, so then we can customize a program moving forward. So people will meet one-on-one with a vocational rehabilitation specialist. And that person is, as we sometimes say, a case manager. So they'll meet and help with all the paperwork that's involved in signing up for the program, and then moving forward, working one-on-one with that person to develop a customized employment action plan. And it's really important to understand that people are coming to our services with different skill sets and different in different areas in which they've had experience or have not. So developing a plan based on, do you already have a resume and cover letter, or are you starting new and you're agreeing to the employment world and we need to help you create one of those. So really getting to know where people are at and the needs that they have in moving forward to be successful. So when we're preparing people for work, it's important to identify a realistic and suitable job goal. And that is really, again, really developed in the first couple meetings of the intake, so that we can understand maybe what they used to do. Definitely there's some transferable skills, but perhaps physically they can't, or for some reason or another, they can't move forward. But we can help people identify new suitable goals in terms of their transferable skills and what might be a suitable employment opportunity in the current labor market. So once an individualized employment action plan has been created, they then go on to, next slide, please, in going on to help in securing work, so finding work. And this can be with job readiness activities. They could be one-on-one with your vocational rehabilitation specialist, or it could be joining a virtual program that helps someone understand and learn how to apply for jobs online, be successful in the open job market. We can help preparing for interviews by just sort of getting people ready in terms of, have they experienced the interview process before, making sure they have the proper attire, definitely conducting mock interviews just to help people work out sort of those stresses and anxieties that come along with interviewing. So again, that can be one-on-one with your VRS, or you can join virtual sessions that are part of our work readiness program. So that is learning to apply for jobs, webinars such as disclosing whether a person wants to disclose their disability or needs to, and how and when, wellness in the workplace, health and safety. So all kinds of job-related information. So when we're helping people find employment, it can be with job development support. So we do have job developers in addition to our vocational rehabilitation specialists. And they have established employer contacts, which if we have a job seeker that is has a job goal that is possibly available, or an opportunity available with one of our employers, we can give them a call and see if that we could set up a meeting, sort of a meet and greet or a formal interview, depending on what the employer's needs are. But most importantly, in the job finding phase, when people are looking, we want to really empower people, encourage people to learn the skills themselves, and so that they know how to create a resume and how to adjust their resume to a particular position, where to find the hidden job market, how to apply, and also how to be the most successful in the open job market, so applying online. Again, each phase is really customized to where the person is at. So someone might be coming through that, has a long history, is really good with their resume, knows how to apply, is really just needs our support in terms of some touches here and there. But then there's also people that might need a little bit more help. So really, we want to determine what level of support do people require or want, and then we can provide it based on that. Again, it's really stressed the learning of the effective job searching techniques throughout the process, so that at the end, they don't need us. We don't want people to become reliant on us, but we want them to build the skills to be able to be successful in finding employment. So next slide. So I mentioned preparing for employment. We help people secure employment and find employment, and keeping employment is very important to us at March-a-Dimes. Job retention is very critical in that we want people to keep the job that they work so hard to get, particularly if it's a good fit. Now, sometimes it might take, if people are new to the employment world or maybe going into another direction than what they used to do, it might take a time or two, a position or two to find that right fit. But when you do, it's important that we maintain the support so that people can be successful in retaining their job. So how we do that, again, it's the ongoing support from their vocational rehabilitation specialists. That can be on the phone, it can be in-person meetings, it could just be quick touch bases from email. We like to see people in person. We want to make sure that we remain engaged, but sometimes people are working full time, and so a phone call or an email is all that they require or all that they really want, especially if everything's going well. But that ongoing support and follow-up is very important, because we've learned in the employment support world that no news isn't necessarily good news. So just because we're not hearing from someone doesn't mean that everything is going great. And we want to make sure that we reach out and that we are there for the person in case they have a question or any kind of challenging situation that might arise. In the beginning, when somebody starts a job, we like to, if they require that, we like to go with them and make sure that they are comfortable with the onboarding process, that they, if they require any support with the paperwork, that we're there for them. Some people are confident with that. Again, it's up to the individual. And then we like to check in at the end of the first shift and at the end of the first week. A lot of times that's when sort of the problems or challenges may arise, because it's new tasks, learning new duties, getting to know people. And so we just want to be there. I mean, possibly everyone is doing okay with all their new tasks and duties, but just to be there for the moral support and encouragement, that some people need just in terms of moving forward. So in addition to the ongoing support when people get a job that we provide to people, we also do employer follow-up. And this is key because when we do support someone with a position that possibly one of our employer relationships was involved with, we want to follow up to make sure that it's going well on both ends, so that the new employee might feel good about what they're doing, and we get great feedback from them, which is fantastic. But the employer might have some other feedback to provide. So obviously we always want to hear, yep, everything's going great, but then sometimes there could be some things that were dropped, or maybe there's some struggles or challenges that they're seeing right away. And we want to hit that really early so that we can address any challenges. So sometimes that is encouraging the employer to have a conversation with their new employee. We always want to build in those natural supports and make sure that the the employer is supporting the person as well. But we also can give the person a call and give feedback. We can come to the site if necessary and readjust if there's some kind of task analysis or learning of the, any kind of aid in terms of learning the duties and the tasks. We can kind of get an inside scoop on sort of what that's all about and provide the appropriate assistance and support that that person needs. But again, a lot of it is just touching base and making sure that everything is okay. We also are good with, helping the employer through some challenging situations where a lot of times we find people unnecessarily our employees are uncomfortable because if the person working with us, they assume they have a disability, then we can provide that support. And just in terms of the new employee, but also the employer requires that as well. So a lot of situations in terms of AODA or minor adjustments on the job, we can support that sort of with, like I said, the new employee and the employer. Next slide. So in partnership with the after-stroke coordinators, we put together a job readiness checklist. And this is very also something that was mentioned in the previous presentation with Alda and Maggie. But things to consider when you're supporting someone or speaking with someone that's considering a return to work is thinking about the independence with activities of daily living, good attention and perception, good verbal and written communication, stable mental health, can use public transit or drive to work. Transportation, how am I going to get to work, is very important. Does the family support the returning to work is a good indication of what is happening. So somebody may feel that they're ready, but there may be, not to undermine the person, but there may be other factors that are happening that the person needs to consider, as well as childcare support arranged. So that's something that we work with folks to make sure that, yes, you're returning to work. That's fantastic. Do you have all of these things in place? So childcare, transportation, just things to consider when you're supporting someone with the return to work. Next slide. So also mentioned previously with Alda and Maggie and their toolkit is the consideration of volunteering. So getting back to work and thinking about getting back to work is, lots, as we've seen throughout the presentations this afternoon, lots of things to consider and to work on possibly and work toward. So we wanted to mention this just in an aid in terms of supporting somebody who is thinking about returning to employment. Volunteering might be the first step. And so what we have here is just sort of and it's pretty common sense. I don't want to insult anybody, but just something to consider. And when we support someone with competitive employment, we want to let people know the difference in commitment. So time commitment. Volunteering, of course, we know it could be 1 to 2 hours a day on a weekly basis. Whereas what we see in employment services working with employers, that most shifts are 6 to 8 hours for about 3 to 5 days a week. Now, again, this isn't, every single position, but for the most part, there is a commitment of a certain amount of hours when you're thinking of competitive employment. So maybe if you're ready for the 1 to 2 hours on a weekly basis, volunteering might be a good way to, is that sort of that first step in building stamina. Attendance and punctuality. So if someone is, you can sort of judge that by when you're meeting with them or appointments and such for them to consider, is it good? Is it fair? Or is it excellent? Because as we know, employers' expectation for reliability and punctuality for your scheduled paid shift needs to be excellent. They require 100%. But in volunteering, we know that there is, because you're giving to the community and you're giving your time, there's a little bit more of a leeway. So just something for people to consider. And when you're talking with people about, am I ready for volunteering or competitive employment? And then things also to consider when thinking about volunteering or competitive employment is the pace. So of course, again, I don't want to, I know this is pretty common, but self-pace, if you're, giving your time to an agency or an organization, the expectation would be, probably a little bit lower. But with competitive employment, we're looking probably at a lot more fast pace, if that's the type of duties. Not a lot of deadlines in volunteering, but definitely for competitive employment, there are expectations of deadlines that need to be completed by a certain time. So that pace, that expectation is there, coming with stress, extra stress, and exertion is something to consider. And then obviously, the goal of giving back to the community is building work readiness, which is great. As we had said throughout, it's a great first step. And then with competitive employment and expectations, you want to sustain the employment and strengthen career skills. So there's a little bit more commitment to that. But again, volunteering, as we keep saying, is a good first step in evaluating and understanding, am I ready for competitive employment? So next slide. So that's wraps up my part of our employment services program. There's much to do or much to talk about when it comes to that. And I think the uniqueness of our services is really building the customized plan. And so it really looks different for other people or each person that comes through. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of Pam and myself and March Dimes Canada. At the beginning of our session, Pam had reviewed the objectives, and we hope by now that all of you can explain the process used by After Stroke Coordinator to assist an individual with return to work goals. We hope that all of you from our presentation will understand or can understand the ways in which March Dimes Canada programs can support an individual with return to work goals and be able to distinguish between after stroke programs and employment services programs in supporting post-stroke clients with their return to work goals. And again, so our last slide is our contact information. So if you are supporting someone or know someone that might be interested in returning to work, definitely here, please reach out. And we are always happy to meet with someone and answer questions, even if somebody is not aware if they are ready or not. Just by talking and getting to know them, and which is something we're always happy to do, we can probably help them, whether it be coming right through our employment services or working with our after stroke coordinators. We can definitely, as Pam had said, build that goal plan in terms of meeting the person's goals and needs. So please consider March Dimes, and thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak to the network.
Thank you, Pam and Miriam. So as we go into the Q&A portion, I am going to stop the recording.